Hello, and welcome to this episode of Reading Between the Wines. I'm your hostess, Winona Glass.
And I'm your co-host, Keegan Moore.
So we are a podcast about a book club and a little wine club. So perhaps you may have forgotten to read the book on the way to book club and you want to speak intelligently about it. And then we want to make you a little bit more educated wine buyer. Expose your palate to some new grapes or try something new from a different region that you may not have tried before. But today, we're going to talk about the Jojo Moyes book that came out in 2023, Someone Else's Shoes. And this book is set in what I could totally see happening, and that these two women who are not paying attention pick up the wrong gym bag. And one of them has Christian Louboutin shoes in it, and the other one has like trainers, tennis shoes, sneakers to those of us in the U.S. And they are very different women. So Sam Kemp, who is, oh my gosh, I wrote stressed out, overworked, underappreciated, in sales, on her feet, struggling to make ends meet, frazzled, with a depressed husband and a teenage daughter. Like all the things that we go through on a daily basis. She is the epitome of most of us.
Right, exactly. But with an amazing boss, right?
Oh, gosh. No, she has a misogynistic boss who's like overly oppressive and just rude most of the time. And essentially, I feel like looking for a reason to fire her all the time.
She was on pins and needles all the time.
Yeah. And then she's got a coworker, Joel, who's like, I got you. I'm here. Like, I'm helping you. I'm trying.
It's like her work husband. They'd worked together for like 8 years.
Yes. Yeah. And he's a super nice guy. And so, again, she's trying to better herself, right? Like, she's at the gym. She's there. She's trying to work out all of her frustrations from this overly oppressive boss, who then moves up this really important meeting without telling her, again, to try to make her fail. And her coworkers are like, we'll pick you up at the gym. Just come on. Like, we got to go. And so she's distracted and she's frazzled, worrying about this meeting and how important it is and all this. And she grabs a gym bag. Looks like hers. It's black. Hers is a knockoff of some big brand, and it has the right name. She just takes it and leaves. She gets in the car. They drive away. They're on their way to the meeting, and she goes to change her shoes. And she opens up the bag, and she was like,
These aren't my boring flats that I thought I had in here.
Yeah, these are not the shoes I thought. These are an amazing pair of red crocodile Christian Louboutin shoes. These are the shoes that like make a woman, right? And so they're like, she's like, I can't go in with tennis shoes on. And they're like, just put the shoes on. And she was like,
I can't walk in those things.
Right? Like, and so she goes into the meeting. It does not go well because she's not steady on her feet in these shoes. So the guy thinks she's drunk
because she's fallen over.
Right. And he's like, so again, Simon's like, you showed up to a meeting drunk? And she's like, no, I did not show up to a meeting drunk. I showed up to a meeting where I couldn't walk in my shoes because they were someone else's. He's not hearing that, right?
Of course not. It's her fault.
He's got no time for that.
Believe the man. Believe Simon.
Uh-huh. So they go to another meeting and she rocks it, right? I mean, she's feeling confident now in these shoes.
Flow on.
Right. Like she's in her space and strikes up a conversation with Miriam Price in the bathroom over the shoes. The woman, Miriam, is like, those shoes are amazing. And she was like, oh, thanks. And so they start this whole conversation. Miriam is like this hard person to negotiate with, and it's not going well in negotiations. And then they're in the bathroom. They meet each other. She sees the shoes, and all of a sudden they come to an agreement. She makes a big sale. Sam closes the business. Sam's the hero. But Simon can't focus on that, right? He can only focus on the negativity. Like, you lost this account. And she's like, yeah, but they were a crap client to begin with, and now I got you a better client with better margins and better lead time, all the things. And he's like, no, this client we needed, we had them for forever, and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, we meet Nisha, and Nisha is a woman of extravagance and luxury. She is also at the gym, and her husband texts her, and she realizes like something's not right with his text message. So she calls him, and she's trying to figure out what is going on. She grabs the gym bag, heads out to her driver's car, and drives back to the hotel, only to be met at the door by her husband's bodyguard who delivers her divorce papers. And so she's not allowed in the hotel. She's completely cut off. She's distraught.
She's like, at least let me go up and get my clothes.
Yeah. Let me grab my purse. I was at the gym. And he's like, nope, you're good. You're done. No, we don't know who you are. Sorry. And so it's just one of those, like, it was a very jarring experience for both of them. And she goes in to put her shoes on and she's like, what in the hell black flats are these? And
what is this?
And so in a way that I find, again, that can only be written into a book, they both go back the next day to say, like, hey, this isn't my bag. I'm sorry, I took the wrong bag. Or Nisha to demand that they look at the closed caption or the CCTV to see who stole her bag. She's convinced someone stole it.
Right.
Whereas Sam's like, oh my gosh, someone took my crappy shoes. Like, I need to get my fake bag back. But they go back and the gym's closed, like out of business, closed, gone forever. And I was like, that seems unrealistic to me, but okay.
Especially overnight. It's like,
right.
And we're closed forever.
Right. Yeah.
No one can enter. No one's here to answer
Just
your
kidding.
calls. Yeah.
So this is where the story kind of takes two different paths. And so Nisha's trying to figure out, where am I going to sleep? How am I going to eat? Like, I need to get back to my son because she has a teenage son, Ray, who's in boarding school in New York. And she has a great relationship with him. And it was hard for her. So she's like, again, kind of trying to figure out what her next steps are. She's going through trying to think 10 steps ahead because she'd been married to this guy for a long time. It wasn't like they were new together.
And then she just gets cut off. Like, that's what killed me.
I know.
Like, you could be a gold digger.
Right.
But you don't have anything, no side account, no emergency stash, no, this is a joint account with my mom or something, like put it in her son's name.
Well, they were in London, but they lived in New York. And so she's stranded in a foreign country, too. She doesn't have her passport. Her passport is still up in the hotel room. So she can't even leave the country. Like, she can't even go, like, fly home. And that's what I kind of thought was sad, too, was she was like, I have no one to call because anybody that I call is going to side with Carl, her soon-to-be ex-husband, versus her because they aren't going to want to, like,
Pick a side.
upset society, right? Carl is definitely the society, and she is
the side piece.
Yeah, expendable. So they have to walk in each other's shoes. So that's how we get the name of the book, Someone Else's Shoes, is because they are literally walking in each other's shoes during this time period. And so Nisha finally gets Carl to meet her, and they meet in the lobby of the hotel. And he's like, what are those shoes? Where are your Louboutins? And he comes obsessed with the Louboutins. She's like, they got stolen at the gym. And he's like, no, you want a divorce? I need those shoes.
She's like, you've already taken like everything. Like, what's
like,
the big deal about the
nothing,
shoes?
But you want these shoes. Okay, whatever. So she's trying to figure out what she can do. So she gets mistaken kind of at the back entrance as an employee or as a new employee who's like lost. And that's when we meet Jasmine. And Jasmine kind of takes her under her wing. She's the head of housekeeping. And Nisha plays along and she's like, yeah, I'm new here for sure. Because she's still trying to figure out how to get her stuff back, right? So she wants to at least get her clothes. And in the meantime, she's figuring out that there's a new woman who's like slid into her role as the wife, or at least as the girlfriend, because she was Carl's admin. And now all of a sudden, like, Nisha, she's wearing my clothes. Like, those are not yours.
That's my suit.
Right. That's my jacket. I mean, she's getting all up in arms about the fact that this woman is wearing her clothes and all. And I'm like, part of me, again, I know that Nisha was written into this character, but I'm like, how superficial of you that all your, like, you're
freaking out about
I would be freaking out that I don't have my passport, that I don't have on my wallet. Like, and she's like, no, I don't have my whatever the designer jacket was. And I was like, we are so not the same person.
I don't know anything about that life or that lifestyle.
I feel like I can see myself more as Sam with the overworked and underappreciated and just trying to like make ends meet, and with a teenage daughter who's driving me crazy. And
then even if you were gifted, 6-inch heels.
Yes.
Like, I can't wear those.
I know. I would look drunk wearing those in somewhere.
And I would fall down walking around the first time.
I would face plant. I'd have to walk in with like a bloody nose because I fell in the parking lot.
Great. I need one friend on each side to help me walk all night. Ready?
Uh-huh. So I completely identify with Sam more than I do with Nisha, just because I can't imagine this happening to me, and I'm like, all I'm worried about is my designer clothes. But so Jasmine takes her under her wing and starts working at the hotel, and she keeps like looking for opportunities to get back into the
Just the penthouse.
Yeah.
Because of course.
And they only let certain people clean the penthouse.
Right.
And
Like everybody's card doesn't work for the penthouse.
Exactly.
Only
But
certain people.
Jasmine's the head of housekeeping. And so Jasmine kind of realizes that Nisha has nowhere to go. So she's like, look, you can come to my house. You can stay with me. I have a teenage daughter.
It's not a whole lot of space. But you're welcome to come.
It's going to be tight. But, you can, if you cook while I do my side hustle here of laundry for other people, and which I can't, how tired she must be too, Jasmine. Because
And of course she takes the bus, which takes even longer, and gets home late, and then has a side job.
And then has a side hustle. And all she asks Nisha is like, why don't you cook while I finish up all the side hustle work? And Nisha's like, I don't cook.
What is that? I don't know.
Who do you think you're talking to? Like, I have a cook. And I'm like, I don't know. But she does it because she doesn't have a choice, right? And Grace the whole time, because they're sharing a room together, and Grace is like, the fact that you exist in my space annoys me.
Of course.
That she's like,
teenage daughters.
I have 7,000 things I'd rather be doing than staring at your mug. So she has to deal with that whole thing, which she never had before, because Ray's been in boarding school and she has a different relationship with him, and it's not a teenage daughter and that you're face to face with and sharing a room with. And so meanwhile, back on the Sam trail, Sam is getting a little comfy in these shoes. She's figuring out that...
Yeah, she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go out on the town in these.
Yeah.
To celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have a piece of clothing that was like your confidence piece, or a suit, or...
Not really.
Really?
No, you?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a little black dress, and it's just one of those things, like, as soon as you put it on, like, just your whole demeanor changes. Like, you just know, like, I look good.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do have some real Italian leather boots.
Ooh.
From Italy. It's
Okay.
like the only thing I brought back from Verona.
It's a great souvenir.
And they are pretty eye-catching.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. And then when you put them on, you're like,
I just don't very often.
You strut. You don't walk, you strut then.
Yeah. Sure.
We're going to have to see these boots. We'll have to pair my black dress with your boots and go out sometime.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. Sounds dangerous, but fun. But what I also thought was interesting about Nisha is that she had come from nothing. Like, when she met Carl, she was a waitress. And so she didn't grow up in this world of opulence and luxury. She kind of fell into it.
Or worked her way into it.
Well, yeah, that's fair too. And she kind of knew how dismissive Carl was in his business dealings and how abrupt he was. And, so I feel like she just never thought he would do it to her. And that was the part that, caught her off guard, was that she knew the type of person he was, but not that he would be that way to her. And that was a realization for her that took a while to come to. Then the second realization is, like, I'm going to have to pull my weight around here with Jasmine and Grace otherwise they're going to kick me out and I got nowhere else to go. But because she can't cook and because she's having a frustrating time, she meets the chef, the cook at the hotel. Alex, and he makes the most amazing sandwiches. And so he makes these sandwiches like for her every day.
And she just like scarfs them down like it's the best thing ever.
Whereas before she was like, no carbs. No, I'm not going to eat that. Like, no, I'll have a salad. And then he's making her these sandwiches and she's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah. And he's just like sitting back watching her eat.
Yeah.
Because he enjoyed people that enjoyed his food.
Uh-huh. And it was very clear she was enjoying his food. And so back with Sam, we're back over on the Sam track of this story. And Sam, we mentioned, has gotten very comfortable in the shoes, and she really is finding her own rhythm right now. But it's still not enough for Simon. But her husband is very depressed, and there's this whole situation where she needs him to like move the motorhome, and he can't even
leave the couch for the day. Poor Phil.
I know he can't even get enough wherewithal to do anything that she needs help with. And she's getting frustrated because she's like, I can't do everything. And we've all been there and we've all gotten to that point. And she's like, all I need you to do is move the motorhome. That's it. The motorhome she doesn't even want. Like, she wants to sell, but she just needs him to move the motorhome, and he doesn't do it. And she's like, I don't even know. I'm just having a bad day. And Joel is there, and they have a moment and they kiss. But more importantly, what I thought came out of that was Joel was like, maybe you should try boxing. Yeah. And she was like, what? He's like, maybe you should try boxing. You've got a lot of like inner stress. And if you go boxing, you could exercise this stress out. And she's like, I'll try it. Well, and she realizes how like liberating and freeing, and she feels so much better about herself whenever she goes boxing because she feels confident and she feels accomplished and all the things she doesn't feel in life. And about the same time, Miriam Price reaches out to her and is like, hey, we've got a new position that we have in our company, and I'd really like for you to interview for it. I feel like you would be a good fit for this position. And she's like, what?
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yes. And so I'm going to stop with Sam's story right there because it becomes a pivotal point. Because in Nisha's story, Nisha's been trying to track down through her housekeeper back at home, track down a guy who had all of this like damning evidence for her husband, Carl, that she could use against him in the divorce. And the guy's like, I delivered them to you. I recognized the shoes. So now Sam's been given this envelope of important information while she's out with Joel and she's talking about boxing and all this stuff. But she's like, I don't know what to do with it. And so now Nisha's got nothing, right? Like Nisha's like, oh my God, whoever has these shoes, one, they're wearing them, which infuriates her. Yeah. Their fat feet. Their fat feet is ruining my shoes. And then she's talking about how now she has all this evidence. So she is like determined because Carl won't give her a divorce till she can find the shoes. And now this person also has all this damning evidence that against Carl, that her former housekeeper knew a guy who had some evidence and that sort of thing. So he was supposed to meet her at the White Horse Pub. And I guess
there's a bunch of them.
Right. It's a chain. And so they go to the wrong one. She's at one and the other person's at another. So she makes it, Nisha's like, I'm going to all of them. I'm going to all of the White Horse pubs. And she finds the one that Sam has been at and she's looking at the footage. And I guess the bartender's like, oh yeah, I know that guy. Like he works over at Uberprint. And so about this time, while things are just starting to have a glimmer of hope for Sam, Nisha comes storming into the office and is like, you have my shoes. You stole my shoes from me. You stole all this stuff from me. Like, you are a horrible person. And of course, Simon's standing there.
Of course he is.
And Simon's like, oh, you're a thief? Oh, well, you're fired. And she's like, what? And the abs, like, I don't know who this woman is. Like, she's coming at me and she's like, it was a mistake. I'm really sorry. Like, I have the shoes that she's like, I just want the shoes. And she's like, okay, let me
go get the shoes.
Let me go to my house. Come with me, crazy lady, which I thought was odd. I wouldn't be like, hey, you just got me fired and stormed into my office and accused me of all these things. Come over to my house. Let me go get those shoes.
Come over to where I'm staying.
Right.
No.
And so they do. They go back. And of course, at this point, Kat has decided that her mom's having an affair and has donated the shoes because she doesn't want the shoes in the house anymore.
Because she saw Sam with Joel.
Right. She saw them out at the bar together, not kissing, just hanging out together as she's trying to have an outlet for something. She has she does have a friend, Andrea, but her friend has cancer. And she's trying to support her through that when she knows she can't make ends meet. So she doesn't want to burden her with like, hey, my life's falling apart too. Yay. Right. So Kat decides that she's going to donate the shoes. So they go to the place, the charity shop that they donated the shoes to. And the shoes have been sold, obviously. I mean, Christian Louboutin's at essentially Goodwill. Yeah. Those things are going to get snapped up quick. Well, I guess this is something that's different in the UK than it is from the US, that they had to write down like who bought it and different things for the charity shop. So they find out the name of the woman who bought the shoes, and she bought it for like, I don't know, like €3 or €4 or £3 or £4, right? She bought them for 3 or 4 pounds.
She got them on the cheap for sure.
Definitely inexpensive Christian Louboutins. But what's funny in all of this is that Nisha has a conversation with her son, and her son's like, Mom, I don't even know why Dad wants those shoes back. They're not real. And she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean they're not real? And she's like, I saw them in the box when they came in. They didn't come in a Christian Louboutin box. They came in like
wrapped.
Yeah, like there's a presentation and an unboxing that comes with these shoes, and he just like gave them to you, which was nice and a kind gesture, but it's not as though they came with the presentation. Like normally when something that high end, you want the person to experience it.
Wrapped in tissue in original packaging.
And I'm sure there's some sort of really nice bag, shoe bag or something. I've not ever had Christian Louboutins, but I can imagine that there's something nice for you to put them in. And he's like, none of that happened. And the red isn't exactly the right red on the soles for them. And he's like, well, no, he had them custom made. And she's like, and Ray is like, I just don't even know why he'd want them back. So she's got this kind of thing in the back of her head as they're chasing these shoes all across the city. And so they go to the woman's house who bought the shoes. And she's a little nutty.
They watch and record her putting a cat in a trash bin.
What?
It's just like, why?
That's so odd.
But then they like have to convince her, and then they tell her she's like won a prize and to go to the Bentley Hotel.
There's going to be a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And
so she has to wear the shoes or bring the shoes at least.
Of course, yes. And so she brings the shoes. They end up stealing the shoes from her by pulling the fire alarm, right?
Yeah, because she was supposed to go out with her husband and like, yeah, they were going to take him or not. And
oh my gosh, wasn't she under the bed and
in the hotel
she gets
room? Stuck in the. Yeah,
I think that's when they pulled the fire alarm because there was like some romance that was getting ready to happen.
Yeah,
and they were like, no.
She's like, you have to save me. I'm under the bed.
Please help me. So they pull the fire alarm. So she gets there and she has the shoes. There's like a whole chase scene. Carl's people break into Sam's house because they somehow realize that Sam has the shoes. And so her house is trashed. And so they're sitting there thinking in Jasmine's apartment, like, what are so important about these shoes? And Nisha's like, I hate these shoes. And she rips the heel off the shoe. And when she does.
What did you think was in the shoe? Did you have the same suspicion?
No, I didn't.
I was immediately thinking drugs.
Okay, that's fair.
Because it was weird, right? He was like, why is he so obsessed with these shoes? Like, just ask for them in the divorce if you paid like $10,000 for them or whatever.
They just ask for that credit.
But I was like, there's obviously got to be, I was like, oh, it's got to be drugs.
Okay, interesting.
Because you could just like wear them through security and they like traveled a bunch.
Right.
But no, it was not.
It was not drugs. It was blood diamonds.
Diamonds.
Lots and lots of diamonds in her heels of her shoes. And so then of course everybody's like, holy
cow. The floor is like covered
in diamonds. And so she does the other one too. And like, I can't even imagine how many millions of dollars in diamonds there are. But she's like, okay, now I have the upper hand. Because she also got the information, blackmailing.
Because now Sam and Nisha are friends, more or less. They're like on a quest.
Sure. And Jasmine and Andrea. It's like
and Andrea gets to come along.
They're like a little four-pack, right? Yeah. So Jasmine's on this quest. Andrea's on this quest along with Sam and Nisha.
But yeah, then they get the package. She's like, oh, I forgot about the package. Like somebody handed me a random. Yeah, it's like a zip drive or something.
Yeah, she never looked at it.
I'm not going to plug that into my computer or whatever. That could be a virus. Like, why would I don't know what this is.
So she goes and grabs it and she gives it to Nisha and they look it up and it's all different kinds of financial information and it just exposes Carl for the crook that he turns out to be. And so Nisha meets Carl at the hotel and she gives him the shoes and she's like, I want a divorce. Here's everything that I want right now. And I want you to sign it. And we're calling it a day and we're done. I don't ever want to hear from you again. I don't ever want to see you again. Here's the shoes. And he's like inspecting the shoes, like to your point. I don't know. I guess maybe I thought that he had an alternative purpose for the shoes.
Like he'd already promised his next mistress the shoes or something.
Or like he was a drag queen and those were his signature. I don't know. But so she gets the shoes back and they are leaving the hotel and everybody's like, I can't believe you just gave him the shoes. Like you didn't. And she's like, I just want to be done with him. I just want to be done. And then they were like, you didn't take the diamonds. You left the diamonds in the shoes. She's like, I just want to be done with him. So they're driving and they see the policewoman and they pull over and they were like, oh, I know, because they had met her earlier. They'd ran a red light and she was trying to give them a ticket and they were like, no, we have to go and we have to meet this guy and promise we're legit. And so they're coming back by and they're like, hey, do you remember us? And they're like,
of course I do.
4 women in a motor coach. You're kind of hard to forget, right? And she was like, do you want to make your career? And she was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, there's a guy who's getting on a private jet who's got blood diamonds in the heels of these red crocodile shoes. You can go and arrest him for that. And she does. She's like, first of all, she's not without skepticism, right? She's like, why should I believe you? And she's like, well, might be my soon-to-be ex-husband, and he might have used me. And the woman's like, all right. So she goes and arrests him. It's a huge ordeal in the press, everything. And Carl is so angry, not that he was arrested, not that he was sold out, but he's angry because of all the diamonds that were in there. There were 3 fake diamonds mixed in among everything. And he was like, I cannot believe that someone stole 3 of my diamonds. Like, dude.
You got them almost all back.
Right. And you had them illegally anyway. And you, all the things. And this is what you're worried about, right? Like, again, he was so distraught about the wrong thing, in my opinion. And the reason there were 3 missing ones is that Nisha leaves, says goodbye, gets on a plane, goes back to Ray, can't wait to see her son. And she mails each of the women their own diamond. And she mails it with a purpose. And it's so funny because she's like, don't tell the others. Yeah. And of course, that's the first thing they all do is they all talk to each other. And they're like, I got a diamond. Did you get a diamond? I got a diamond. But she even gives them like the name of the guy to go to that will buy it from them. Right. Like she's made all the arrangements for them. And they each get to pursue their own path. Like Andrea gets to pay off all of her medical debt. Sam can finally get, on the right path, and Jasmine can open a restaurant and not have to have a side hustle anymore. So all of the women get to fulfill their dreams, but Nisha didn't save one for herself. Feel like
if you're going to take 3, take one for yourself.
What's one more?
Yeah.
And I mean, they were worth a lot of money, but I do love that Sam does get the job from Miriam Price, and it turns out that the company that Sam is now working for is buying Uberprint, and there's going to need to be layoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Sam's like, I think I know the first person we're going to cut. And so she gets to fire Simon, which just made my heart happy that she got to have him sit across from her, and she got to say, yeah. You're done. So it was a fun book. It was an easy read. It was a lot of interesting twists and turns in that I thought I really wanted to hate Nisha, and the way that she turned around and did a 180 and realized that she needed these female friends who had her back no matter what. They all 3 showed up at Sam's house to clean after Carl's people had broken in looking for her shoes. And it just...
Well, that was a funny part too, when they're all cleaning and they're kind of like talking, and they realize that Nisha was like, so you have cleaned toilets before, because when she first started working with Jasmine, she acted like she didn't know how to do anything. She's like, oh no, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to clean.
Yeah. I had a couple of quotes that I really liked in this book. One was, why don't women stand up straight? If you look like a victim, why are you surprised when people treat you badly? And Nisha was talking about this, and she was talking about the first time she met Sam and how Sam was like not confident in herself. I mean, she was becoming more confident in herself, but life had beat Sam down pretty regularly. And so she was like, just stand up straight, like portray that you have confidence. That whole like Wonder Woman pose or Superwoman pose that they say, that if you just take up more space, you'll feel better about yourself. And so that was an interesting quote for me, because she is just judging Sam based off of her posture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like maybe she had a very physical day, like
exactly.
my back hurts.
Yeah.
I also had a quote This was from Dr. Kovitz, who was the psychologist for Phil, Sam's husband, who was going through some tough times in depression. But he said, when we're low, it can be easy to see everything through a prism of negativity. Human beings are remarkably bad at understanding other people's motivations, even when they know them terribly well. We write all sorts of inaccurate stories in our heads.
That is so true.
It is, because we're so turned in on ourselves often. You know, you just make one passing comment and somebody says something and you're like, oh no, they must be like doing that because of something I did. And it's like, but did you think about how they might have had a bad day?
Right, exactly.
You know, and it's like, it's not always about you, it's about them, you know?
Right. The other one that I liked was Sam was talking about, am I letting down the sisterhood by, you know, using sex as a weapon? These are basically sex, these shoes, right? I mean, they were very sexy shoes. But this is, you know, why I asked that question about, do you have an article of clothing that makes you feel more confident? Because it's sometimes when you feel confident about yourself, you portray a level of confidence that is interpreted a certain way as sexual or whatever, but it really isn't. It's just, I feel really confident and good about myself, and people see that.
And people notice.
And people notice. And a lot of times people are attracted to that energy. And so I didn't feel like she was letting down the sisterhood by wearing a pair of sexy shoes to work with her black frumpy suit.
Right.
You know, that I felt like it was, if nothing else, it was the first step in her finding her own voice and empowering herself to be the person she should be, to live into the person that she would become. And gave her confidence. And that's really what it's about, right? It's just having confidence in yourself.
Definitely.
All right. We talked a lot about shoes, luxury, gym bags, random people, over-oppressive bosses. How are we tying wine into this?
Well, there was a quote that was wine related. It said, we're having champagne. Well, Prosecco. I don't have the money for champagne. But it's basically the same. And that was Andrea. But I feel like we've talked quite a bit about champagne and Prosecco and sparkling Vouvray. And so I thought it would be more fun to talk about wine fraud.
Okay. Like fake wine?
Fake wine.
Okay.
And since it's like pretty hard to intentionally buy fake wine.
Is it?
At least on a budget. So there's a couple scandals that I thought it'd be fun to talk about. But one scandal involved Austrian wine in 1985.
Okay.
So I brought a wine from Austria.
Ooh.
So there was a pretty well done documentary made called Sour Grapes. And it centers around Rudy Kurniawan. And he was falsifying rare and expensive aged wines.
Really?
So he came to the United States and he became known as this master taster. And he was really good at blinding. He just had a great memory of vintages and producers. And he became this master of mixing inexpensive wines or a less inexpensive vintage together and trying to replicate a bigger and nicer vintage. And then he would sometimes also label them with a famous vineyard name.
So it could not have their juice in the bottle at all, but he's putting this label on it as if it's theirs.
Right.
Wow.
Or it could be the same producer, but the 82 fetches more money than the 83, so he'd get the 81 and the 83 and blend it into an 82.
It's got to be close, right? I mean, that's how wine works.
Well, he duped a lot of people.
Did he really?
He mostly sold to auction houses and mostly to Acker, but he sold to other wealthy wine collectors as well. So since at least 2003, other collectors in California started watching him spend millions of dollars on these rare bottles of wines. And to many, it seemed reasonable to assume that Rudy's cellar was a legitimate place to buy wines from.
Well, sure. I mean, if he's portraying himself as the expert and dropping millions of dollars, then why wouldn't you think that he had the knowledge?
He did. He did have the knowledge of these rare, older wines.
He just also had a secret.
And an unparalleled palate with a big secret. And he used those talents to create these exceptional wines out of blending cheaper stuff.
Wow. That's just some big cojones to even think about that.
Well, he was also charming and
course.
pretty generous, and he
Right.
would open bottles up with his friends. And maybe they were real and maybe they weren't, but that was at least to convince them. So at the pinnacle of this wine scandal, 2006, he made $34 million in
Oh
2
my
auctions
gosh.
at Acker.
That is crazy.
And he eventually got brought down by a winemaker, Laurent Ponceau. It's a 4th-generation Burgundian winemaker. Mm-hmm. And he saw these large amounts of his rare wines, appearing at auctions, and he was super suspicious.
As one should be.
As he should have been, because he showed up at the auction on April 25th, 2008 at Acker. And he saw in the catalog they had listed 1959 and 1945, and they were bottles of Clos Saint-Denis. Well, he hadn't started making those wines from that particular vineyard until the 1980s.
Oh.
So he'd reached out, and they had, never pulled them from the catalog. So he went there, and eventually the lots were withdrawn and never actually sold.
But he was like, hold up, friends.
I didn't make that wine. My family didn't make that wine. That wine didn't exist.
Right. Everything about that is fake.
100%. And so after that incident, Acker refused to buy anything from Rudy. But Christie's, the other big auction house, was still willing to buy from Rudy.
They didn't get the memo. Or they didn't believe the memo or something.
They chose not to get the memo because I
Okay.
think the memo was out in the world, if you will.
Gotcha.
So one of these rich people that got duped by Rudy was Bill Koch, who's one of the world's biggest collectors. Mm-hmm. And Koch had started a sweep of his 43,000 bottle cellar for counterfeits.
Okay, let's just stop right there. 43,000 bottles of wine. I want to see that. I want to be in that, because I don't even think Total Wine might have 43,000 bottles of wine.
Well, even if they do, they're not the bottles that he has.
Of course they're not. No, there's a lot of $2 Chuck in there, and I'm sure there's none in Bill Koch's, but I am just in awe of 43,000 bottles.
Sure. So he gets aggressive. He files lawsuits against the auction houses and the collectors. And Koch's investigators send 4 of these bottles he'd bought from Rudy to the original French chateaus to be inspected. And he also had 3 other wines examined by gamma ray spectrometry.
Okay, very cool.
And they found all the bottles were likely fakes. And he spent $25 million suing all these people, trying to hold them accountable for knowingly selling fake wine. And in some cases, he was offered full refunds, but he refused.
Well, that's what I was wondering. How much were those bottles worth?
Certainly less than $25 million.
Right. But still, I'm just he was doing it to prove a point. You're
100%.
You're a jerk face.
Yeah.
And
allowed him out. So Koch won a $3 million settlement against Rudy with a stipulation that he had to expose his sources and any accomplices that he might have had.
Well, it seems fair.
Because it was a big operation, and it seemed highly unlikely that he was doing it on his own. But none of that ever happened.
What?
And he never got any money from Rudy.
No way.
Yeah. So Koch also sued Acker, the auction house that had sold most of Rudy's wines. And now Acker, the auction house that sold most of Rudy's wines, has to get every wine produced prior to 1970 inspected by an independent authority.
I feel like that's legit. I would probably want that done, especially if I'm dropping millions of
A
dollars.
great rule to have in place.
Yeah.
Thanks to a billionaire with a cause to sue,
To sue over his fake wine.
So Koch's investigators also learned Rudy's real name to be Zhenwang Huang.
Oh, so he's not even Rudy.
Right. So he is of
Dadgum.
Chinese ancestry, and he moved to Indonesia as a child. And I guess it's pretty common to change your name to something more Indonesian. But Ponceau, the Burgundy producer, worked with the FBI, and they eventually discovered Rudy's bottle operation at his house in 2012.
Oh my gosh.
So they beat down the door, and he's in PJs, and his mom is there, but nobody else is. Well, listen to this laundry list of evidence that they find.
Oh my days.
Thousands of wine labels from top wines, hundreds of old and new corks, lead capsules, rare French sealing wax, rubber stamps with vintages and chateau names, glue, stencils, patterned scissors, detailed instructions for fabricating labels,
Oh my gosh.
and bottles of cheap wine labeled with what they might taste like.
That is 100% like
A preponderance of evidence.
right. Yes. I mean, this is like fraudulent for dummies, right?
Right. How not to do this.
Yes. If you want to not get caught, here are the things you shouldn't have in your house.
Right. So he was found guilty of fraud for selling counterfeit wines and defrauding a finance company on December 18th, 2013.
So fairly recently in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Served almost 9 years.
Wow.
And then in April of 2021, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement of the United States, deported him back to Indonesia. So he had come to the United States, to California, on a student visa, and then it expired and he never left.
Oh, geez. So he was in the U.S. illegally when he was doing all of this.
Absolutely.
Oh, my days.
And guess what? This isn't ever. He's back at it.
Are you kidding me?
Well, he hosted a dinner in Singapore in July of 2023
Very recently.
where his fans,
What?
because he has fans now,
How-
asked him to create fake versions of 1990 DRC Romani Conti, Domaine della Romani Conti, and 1990 Petrus.
They're asking him to make fake wine.
Yes. And the kicker is that the 7 guests brought the originals. So not only
Oh
is he
my
getting
gosh.
paid to make fakes, but he gets to drink the originals
Wait, I am...
to continue sharpening his palate in memory of
I don't
well-known old
understand.
wines.
The 7 people who had the original bottles are like, this would be fun.
Yeah, and then they found evidence that this has happened at least once before the
Oh my-
July event since he's been back
So he's back.
in the game.
At least he is open about it. I mean, like, they didn't try to create wine. He wasn't trying to pass off wines. They were like, hey, create these fake wines for us and let's compare them against the originals.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's fans. None of his fans are going to sue him, right?
Who knows? But
Is it fraud?
why do you have fans if you're...
I don't know. I don't know
I
these
have
7
no
people.
idea. I'm flabbergasted.
But apparently he learned from the best, and he comes from a family of fraudsters, and he has 2 uncles that committed bank fraud.
So he's like, hey,
So this is like nothing
so this is
to what the uncles did.
in the DNA of his genetics.
He can't help it.
Hey, unks, can you guys tell me how I can, help me with the fraud thing? Apparently they didn't help him very good with the covering up or the not getting caught since,
Well, one uncle, paid off some prison guards and got out early, and then the other uncle was convicted, but he, disappeared, so he, never
Ooh.
had to go to prison to begin with, so...
so I guess they're thinking, hey, Rudy, we still got a little bit to teach you.
Yeah.
You went to jail for 9 years. Friend, that's not the way to do it.
That's nothing, but you got caught in the United States, and you probably shouldn't do that again.
Some other fun wine frauds?
Absolutely. Nothing on the scale of Rudy.
I mean, that.
But in the
fact that
wine
you had a
world-
documentary made about you
Right.
is, yeah.
There's also Brunello Gate, which if there's a scandal in Italy, instead of gate, like we like to use here in the United States, they use Poli. So Brunello Poli.
Buonello Poli.
Yeah. So in 2008, many top producers of Brunello di Montalcino in Tuscany, Italy, were pretty much accused of making not Brunello di Montalcino because it's supposed to be 100% Sangiovese. Well, 20% of the 6.7 million liters of, quote, Brunello wine were taken into custody. 17 people were indicted.
Holy cow.
11 took plea deals in Operation Mixed Wine. That's clever. It included 42 companies, and they were accused of falsifying their labels that didn't comply with Brunello regulations. Rules are in place for a reason. Brunello fetches more prices.
Generally, yeah.
Right. So the producers were accused of adding illegal grape varieties, foreign and domestic, that add color and body and richer fruit flavors. And this tends to appeal to a more international market. As I said, Brunello is supposed to be 100% Sangiovese. And the authorities did return the wine to the 11 that took plea deals
That's good.
and allowed them to relabel their wines as Toscana Rosso and sell them.
So, in the grand scheme of things, they did not lace the wine with antifreeze components. They didn't try
They might have
to
just added a little bit of Merlot to make it
Right,
darker and more
right.
fruity and round.
Yeah, they were just trying to make a better wine to sell, but they may have mislabeled it as a Brunello when it wasn't. But then Rudy's like, "Hey, y'all, I can make you a whole lot more money.
I can make you a Brunello.
Let's take this 2008 one and let's make it a 1956, even though you didn't produce wine in 1956, and we'll sell it for even more."
Sure. But the rules are in place so that the customer knows what they're buying.
Sure.
Like
sure.
you can, if you want to add Merlot to your Sangiovese, fine, but you can't call it Brunello.
Right.
But the reaction worldwide, American importers refused to buy Brunello wines unless it could be conclusively proven that the wines were indeed 100% Sangiovese. And
so is this another instance where they were like independently evaluated?
no idea. But they just wanted some proof.
Sure.
Like, prove to us that you actually made Brunello this year.
I'm feeling like that's a side hustle for us, is to become one of these independent wine.
Be like a wine fraud expert.
Yeah.
Take a class online. But because the United States is the largest market at Brunello, this made a little dent, and about 20% of the producers lost their DOCG status.
Oh, wow.
But now business is pretty much back to normal. Tourism is up and sales are steady. So
Well-
this was not anywhere near the scandal
Sure.
of Austria in the 80s.
Right.
Or the Rudy scandal. And then I'd like to end with something that might be unusual and something you wouldn't suspect to be fraudulently made.
You definitely have my attention.
So certain people, fraudsters, weren't making fake bottles of high-end wine. They were making fake bottles of Yellowtail.
The one with the kangaroo on it?
Yeah, the rue juice.
Why? I have lots of whys.
What
Questions.
a great question.
Please.
It gets better. So Chinese forgers were caught making fake bottles of Yellowtail and selling them to British supermarkets. And this was flagged by a customer that had bought 6 bottles of Yellowtail and realized that 3 of them were a different color than the other 3, and they didn't taste like the others.
Oh, my.
So
they were a Yellowtail connoisseur?
Oh, yeah. They were like, wait a second. This doesn't taste like the Yellowtail I normally drink. Well, it was found that they'd been purchased by an illegitimate, unlicensed seller. Fun little quote from Chris Jones of the West Midlands Police. "The only way this alcohol could have been bought is off the back of a truck with a white van man."
I'm sorry. A white van man?
A white van man, you know. The one that your mom warned you about to not buy candy from, the white van man.
Yeah, you should definitely not buy wine from the white van man either.
So obviously the store's liquor license was revoked. The supervisor that bought the fake Yellowtail was fired. The UK police ended up confiscating around 5,000 cases of Yellowtail.
I would just want to be part of that conversation. Like, I'm sorry, we're going to have to take all your Yellowtail. And they're like, really? Okay.
Yeah, turns out your boss bought some fake stuff from the white van man. So, I don't know. But the funniest part of this, so Chinese authorities think that this fake Yellowtail might have actually been made from unsold bottles of Penfolds.
So they actually like made Yellowtail better?
Absolutely. Why would you do that?
The only thing that would make this better is if there was an association they were involved with.
Oh, wait. You're getting there.
Oh,
This is a
no.
quote from the inside. "Wine drinkers need to know that when they buy a bottle of Yellowtail, they're getting a vastly over-sweetened bottle of filth.
Oh my.
We can't have them accidentally drinking something that might actually taste like wine."
Please tell me that Yellowtail said that.
No, this was one of the forgers or part of the association.
Oh my gosh.
I think they were like trying to flag it. So the group responsible for this fraudulent Yellowtail was blackballed from the Chinese Guild of Wine Forgers.
Wait. So the forgers.
First of all, yeah. There's a Chinese Guild of Wine Forgers.
Right. This is a very complex layered statement you just made. So there's a group of Chinese, a guild of wine foragers, and the group who did the Yellowtail forgery, they were like, oh, no. You can't be part of our club.
Yes. Sorry, your membership has been revoked.
You forged bad wine? I have lots of questions here. I keep going back to the fact that they were like, this is, what did you say? An oversweetened bottle of filth?
Yeah.
I think that is just hilarious that they made it with better wine than Yellowtail with the Penfolds. That's just baffling to me.
So an inspector on the case advised people that normally drink Yellowtail that if it tastes more like wine than normal, to report it to the authorities.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. That might be fraudulent.
He also recommended adding half a bag of sugar to the wine to get it a little more used to what they were drinking.
Oh my gosh. So even the inspectors who are working on the case are like, we take this seriously, but not. I mean, report it to the authorities and then add some sweetener to it, shake it up, and you're good to go.
You're good to go. There's your Yellowtail.
Wow. That is, I have not laughed that much on a podcast in a while. That was hilarious.
I found it fascinating that
The
in addition to
man.
Rudy, you know,
The white van man.
white van man faking the bottom of the bottom, the critter juice, the rue juice.
Mm-hmm. The entry level, for sure, of wine, and one of the most mass-produced wines anyway.
Right. I feel like it was almost like a prank. Like the guy
Right.
said, like, people need to know that they're not even, this is what wine should taste like. Like, joke's on you. Like, you drank real wine when you bought your Yellowtail, you know?
Joke's
like,
on you. We made your wine better.
Yeah, we got some old Penfolds for you.
And then they got revoked. Their membership got revoked from the wine foragers.
Do it right, man. You're supposed to be making money here, not like making fun of people drinking Yellowtail.
There's so many fun things there.
But yeah, like our fake shoes in the book.
Yes.
There's also fake wine. I mean, also fake art, you know?
I mean, there's a lot of fake things, but that definitely, this one was hilarious. So thank you for that. Oh my goodness. We laughed a lot during the book with everything that happened with Sam and Nisha and Andrea and Jasmine. And now we've laughed a lot with our fake wine. And so we hope that you have enjoyed this adventure with us today. We learned a lot about Austrian wines and the antifreeze issue of 1980s that they had. And even more about our friend Rudy, who's now being essentially
Back into business.
being sought out to create fake wines. I mean, talk about a niche market, right?
Yeah. You know, if you want to show up to a wine dinner and impress your friends, like Rudy's for hire. I don't know what he charges, but it's probably cheaper than the original bottle. So.
But you can't have it in the U.S. because he's not welcome here.
That's true.
We're going to have to go. He was in Singapore, so maybe we'll do it when we go to Italy.
There you go.
Or South Africa. We'll try and have Rudy on our podcast. But we've had a great adventure today. It has been a lot of fun with you. So thank you for taking this adventure with us. If you want to learn more about the wines, please go to readingbetweenthewines.blog. If you'd like to support our podcast, please head over to patreon.com, Reading Between the Wines. And we appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers. They keep us in wine and books. It takes a team to make this happen, and we appreciate our audio engineers in Kelly and Kem and our producer in Stacy. Until we meet again, always keep your glass half full. Cheers.
Cheers.